So, Geoscience, I'm coming from the oil and gas industry. I've been spending 20 years in the oil and gas. I've been spending some years doing research at university and academia. And most of the people from the oil and gas, here we have some representative, think about Geoscience on the subsurface, which is good. But I would say that Geoscience, obviously, especially for the academia, means also surface. And it means environment, earthquakes, effects, water resources, and at the end also social impact. So I did like these two pictures because they show that you have always to consider the subsurface as well as the surface as part of a unique object of interest. And unfortunately, this let's say is mostly at times seen as a problem, not an opportunity. In my opinion, this is an opportunity to start to consider these two things together always. Depending less if you look for a deep reservoir or for shallow resources or problems. This to me is an opportunity for the oil and gas as well. So the Geoscience community from the oil and gas industry is indeed, I would say, not only in a good, but in the best position to support and provide its knowledge and experience at global scale, because we are usually working at the global scale, to make society needs for resources, environment, quality, and resilience to hazard at the same time. It doesn't make much sense to keep these two things separated. So we know we are working in an environment. This is a unique system with air, water, life, and land, and there is a very important aspect of energy. That is what really helps us to be in the position we are today. So we cannot think about these things without energy, but I think we need to think about all these things together today more than in the past. So we need to support society's demand, which face the challenge of modern times. We have 6-7 billions today, cultural life, and support what I like to call a sustainable business. Sustainable business means that I want to avoid as much as possible the risk of impact on my environment. At the same time, I want to make my work at my best. I don't want to be blamed. I don't want to be pointed out as a bad guy because I'm doing something very important. I'm providing energy for the human life. So Geoscience, I like to talk at 360 degrees, not only because I'm a geologist, but because we know it's at the foundation of the value chain for the oil and gas industry, in the exploration sector in particular. So most of the decision that guides exploration and hence everything starts from there, I would say that not always are considered, but in fact, indeed are valid for the whole E&P cycle. I mean, once you take a decision about drilling and making discovery, this is valid for the whole cycle. And we know that most of the risk is in exploration, that's quite well known, but this means also that most of the opportunity and the value is in that phase. And this is true at the beginning of the project, when you look for oil and gas. But it's as much as true all along the project down to the end of the project. I mean, most of the uncertainty, because it's difficult to predict what is 3,000 meters below our feet, most of the uncertainty of the value is in the exploration, is in the geoscience thinking, but this is not just valid when I drill the first exploration well. It's as much as valid through my development and production phase. And this is not always considered. We tend to work in a sequential way. And I mean, the reason is very simple. Oil and gas industry, let's say we use quite well-defined procedures. From exploration to appraisal, development. And this is, I mean, oil is still found the same way it was in the past. First in man's mind, then in the subsurface. That's the way. And it works. I mean, it's becoming more difficult, but it works. The system works. And so this is making difficult to change things, because it works. It worked for almost 80 years. But today, let's say we are facing a different time. There is more and more needs to reduce risks, to valorize the reservoir, to quickly upgrade the resource into reserves. So what I consider is possibly there to what is proven to be there, to increase the capital efficiency. Because nobody wants to keep money in a bank just for there. They want to make sure that there are big investments are recovered quickly. So there is the need to achieve short time to market, anticipate revenues. All this is happening while geological settings to explore are becoming increasingly complex. Deeper and deeper water, subsalt, and more difficult things to be solved by geologists. So all these should somehow is pushing companies to be more efficient and implement change also in their organization models, even more considering the recent years of a low oil price scenario. So, and the push towards renewable. So, let's say the oil and gas industry, and I feel as part of that, is having a lot of pushes. Renewables, environment, more difficult, more risky to find oil and gas. And we need to think a little bit differently in respect of the past. So this is just an example. As I'm from Italy and I did work for 10 years from Eni, this is what Eni, which is a quite big company in Italy, is doing in the recent years. One solution is not the only one. Solution is to parallelize workflow and activities. Instead of keeping a simple sequential steps, like I do exploration, then I move to appraisal, then I move to development and production. And most of the times, there is a lot of information that is lost along the way. Most of the time, at the end, is an engineer issue. At the beginning, is a geological issue, and there is not much link between these two. And what Eni is doing in this recent year is taking this exploration as a boy engineer and procurement execution phase and trying to parallelize them. What this means is that you take a little bit more risk at the beginning. You force people to think at the same object from the early stage. But if you are good and your exploration is successful, you really anticipate revenues, you really anticipate achieve a shorter time to the market. You make a lot of good things for your projects and your shareholders. So let's say that this sort of solution, and Shell has its own solution, Total has its own solution, all those pushed towards integration. Integration is a nice word, everybody uses it, but it's not an easy one. So we know there is a need of integration between disciplines, professionals, so that the project execution works better. But this is needed at a very early stage. This is my message also for the students. Let's say we are used at the university to have many different compartments, many different topics to be covered. There is not much integration because there is not much need to do that when you think about it. But instead, in real life, and especially these days, for the reason I just explored that, there is the need to put together people, process, and technologies. This is taken by Schlamm, and there is not just one way to do that. And the solution cannot be provided by the external. It's not an external solution. It's many a cultural solution. I will stress this. So one of the ways to think about is that not only I want to parallelize my activities, but I don't want to consider them anymore as an arrow in one direction, and you never go back. In fact, our work of geoscientists should be considered as a cycle. This is true for the oil and gas not only. This is a nice, it was built for unconventional, but you can see reservoir understanding, well positioned, production optimization, has to go back and forward. Doesn't make any sense that I do my geological work and engineers do their work after me and they never come back to me. Because the engineer information, like on production, on pressures, is so important also from a geological standpoint. It can push me towards the right solution. And this is a mind attitude. It's not somebody can tell you to do that and that's it. So the good news is that today this is much more easy than in the past. It's possible thanks to digitalization. I mean, we live in a digital world, and many things that were not even possible in the past now are easy. Think about your mobile phone. So let's say that good news is that we can do that, and digitalization is really helping on that. We know also that the oil and gas industry is let's say, is increasingly important to be able to process and interpret ever increasing amounts of data. So there is a need to put these things together, and nobody can spend its time just reading articles or looking at seismic data all the time. There is no way we can do this just with our money. So let's say we have now the possibility to create really open books of data and projects. Published one, public one, confidential one, no problem. But the point is that it's not just a simple work of making people access to the same data. That's not really enough. It's good, we can do it today, but it's not enough. We need to change the behavior approach. We need to break down organization boundaries, locate people sometimes in the same room. We have a lot of digital capabilities to make this happening also if we are in different parts of the world today. So create integrated team to deliver results. This is just an example. There's an online cloud archive with petrotechnical data on which you can have access from different platforms. This is today a reality. I mean, we don't need to invent anything. This was invented for others and for us, and it's there. You just find the right way to implement it. So we have new technologies. That's where the title comes from, bytes, barrels. That is providing us a lot of different tools, very amazing, fascinating tools. Calculation powers, drones and robotics, like in operation. 3D capabilities and graphic solution, mostly developed for PlayStation reasons, but very useful for oil and gas. Augmented and virtual reality, machine learning and artificial intelligence, big data and cloud database. All these represent opportunities to push boundaries of exploration, because I come from exploration, I like to talk about that, and really to increase quality of geoscience work, generally speaking. And this is not only for the oil and gas, it's as much as true for the academia, to reduce project time or reduce risk. We have so much amount of data that without the help of machine learning and artificial intelligence, we will never be able to look at our data. So we need to find a compromise between spending money to acquire more and more sophisticated data and have somebody that has the time to look at that, so to extract information. This is just an example of a couple of new high-performance computing centers that has been recently built. In 2017, E&I built these huge compounds made just to process elaborate data remotely from that core. And like just for example, for who of you is doing a dynamic simulation, 100,000 high-resolution reservoir model simulation can be executed in 15 hours. Something that did require months just a few years ago. Or that processing can now take a week instead of 10 months, as soon as, let's say, the workflow is defined. Even more recent one is being built in Houston. By that, you can think about 40,000 server immersive cooled data hall with 250 petaflops capacity. It's something, I mean, completely impossible to think about just 3 years ago. And this is obviously, owned by one oil and gas company. This is a service provider, can be used by everybody. So just to go back and stress, I think that technology and digitalization today really allow to build this integrated platform, which was my starting point. We can do that between software and hardware, but we cannot forget the human resources. We need to invest on better knowledge of individuals as a form of career from the early stage. We need to find new ways of working in multitask project teams. And I think the positive message is that this is achievable today thanks to technology that is available and the right people at it. And this has to be built, mainly in the academia world and schools, but also in the oil and gas. So there is a need, to me, coming from the oil and gas, to reinvent the way oil and gas industry is seen from outside, to work on reputation, to manage and reduce the social impact. Not only the real social impact, but what is perceived by the people. Probably this is not a problem of Brunei, but I can assure you in Europe is the only problem, is the bigger problem. You cannot work anymore if you don't take care of this. And if your students want to work worldwide, they need to be really careful and consider this in the early stage. It's not a problem, it's an opportunity in my opinion. Let's say there is another reason is that oil and gas need to attract good people, good talent. We need to build good talent. And this cannot be done if the reputation is bad. The talent pool is quite shallow. There is a lot of push towards technology, for example, towards IT companies, but we still need a lot of good people to provide energy for the next 100 years. And if we consider the millennial generation, what the youngs are used to be in terms of social, digital environment, social networking, easy access to rich media information, and really we need to change something in the way the business is managed. And also the data is managed. Confidential is important. We know how expensive it is to acquire a data, but it really doesn't make sense to create walls around. It did make in the past, it's not making any more sense today, in my opinion. So there is really, to me, the need for right-minded attitude and culture. So digitalization, big data is nice, it is very important, but it's not enough. What I like is to say we need to move from volumes to values. This is usually in the oil and gas industry, it means that it's important to find new hydrocarbon discoveries, but it's also important to give value to what you already found. So to extract value from your discoveries, from your fields, to make sure that the life of your fields is as long as possible, etc. But to me, it also means that you need to move to an attention to volumes, also to attention to values that consider the social impact of your activity, and which is positive because we create energy, but has to consider a 360 degree. So we need to, and in these terms, geology is geoscience and geology is very important because it can help to spread and disseminate the right culture and technical knowledge across the E&P cycles and not only. And to do that, you need to start from the base. And the base is always, in our business, is geoscience from a technical standpoint, but it's training and knowledge from a more general point of view. So to conclude, I like to stress the importance of a cultural training, not only technical scientific. It's important to have a lot of skills, but it's important to have attitude. Training should not be considered just at the beginning. In the past, oil and gas companies, and still today, used to have a lot of good training in the beginning. 2 years, 3 years program. And that's it. Then you're ready to work. And then you don't forget about it. You will have training on the job by chance. I don't think that is any more good because society is going too fast to allow you to forget about training. And digitalization is just one example. And the dynamics have changed. So there are several ways to do that. Training on the job is one of the ways. We have an example I will show in the next slide, tutorial virtual project at the beginning to help, not to judge the youngs. Working on skills instead of just on, working on attitude instead of just on skills, create talent, rotating key people and projects around, and contribute to develop a good approach and education system to energy. I will not talk anymore about only oil and gas, I will talk about energy, in my opinion, and there is a strong need to put together academia, research, and industry. I can see everywhere I go in the world, there are few good examples, but most of the time, separate words. So this is just an example of this tutorial virtual project in which we have been implemented this in Italy. It's made to speed up and drive professional competence of geoscience, but it's also made to find leading roles, to individually investigate and find talents. And usually it's made up to 2 phases, tutorship and results around key exploration departments. It's like you take a case history, an existing real case history, doesn't need to be a successful one, can be unsuccessful one, and you make people working on a project that is real. Obviously, you don't ask young people to drill a well, you ask them to suggest where to drill your first well and you can show the results. We have so many, I would say hundreds, thousands of examples and case histories. And we tend to forget the bad one, the unlucky one, and we tend to celebrate the good one. Instead, there is a huge source of information that most of the time can be also publicly available because less confidential. We know that today technology allows us to do e-training in many different ways, distance learning studios to share specialist know-how, course capturing and broadcasting to build experts' experience, immersive training techniques, tutorial self-learning. Everything is good. Now we can do much more than we could in the past. But the key point in the middle of this is the people. And finally, virtual reality geoscience training example. There are many companies developing these kind of tools. not only to play with the PlayStation, but also to teach geology. And I mean, the idea that you have integrated platform in which to consider the same time seismic data, geological data, surface and subsurface data, and look at outcrops, not the necessity to be there, which is always expensive and not easy to organize for big organizations. It's something that we should all think about from both sides, academia and oil and gas. And with this, I thank you for your attention.